This is an ugly RV, especially on the outside. The inside, not so bad. Done a lot of work on the inside, but the outside has been completely ignored and forgotten about. But starting today, that is going to change. It's pretty dirty, gross. We're gonna clean this all up. We're gonna remove these ugly vinyl, whatever they are, that are already starting to peel off. And we're gonna make this outside look a little bit better. If you've never watched our channel before, thanks for joining. My name is Don, and this is 10,000 Roads. We bought an old 1998 Winnebago Itasca Sunflyer, and we're renovating it. We've pretty much gutted the inside and rebuilt it back up, but the outside is pretty ugly, and I know my neighbors must hate me for having this ugly monstrosity in my yard. So as you can see here, this is what I'm working with. They're peeling off. There's no point painting over them. You know, the goal is with this guy, we're going to, you know, clean it off, peel these vinyl pieces off, and then give her a nice new coat of paint, which is not the kind of thing you can do on your own. Typically, you're going to need to go somewhere that specializes in painting an RV and getting the right kind of finish. But this outside is hideous. I live in Florida. If you've never watched my channel and didn't know that, that's why this looks so moldy and so gross. I'm sure this happens elsewhere too, but this is like from 1 year of sitting here in Florida. It's so bad down here with the mold and the rain. So it's about time to start working on this outside and making her look better. And this is what the back looks like. Got to get rid of this thing. I'm a Ravens fan. I just cannot have a 49ers bumper sticker on my vehicle. But at least it's not a Steelers one. I can live with a 49ers one. Can't live with a Steelers one. I've already done a little bit of work back here and peeled some of these off as I've been doing projects. I did a video on replacing this door just a couple of weeks ago, and it's already got this grime all over it again. So again, that's the nature of living in Florida. The grime comes really quickly. But we've got a lot of work to do, culminating in this little portion right here. If you remember back to an earlier episode of 10,000 Roads, I stupidly poked a saw through the fiberglass. And so I had to patch it. And I used fiberglass for the first time and patched this thing up. So now I've got a pretty rough piece of fiberglass that I've got to sand down and smooth out, and then probably fill this little dip that you probably can't tell is there, but I can feel it, with Bondo and sand it on down. But this kind of stuff, this vinyl up here isn't so bad, especially the letters. So these letters up here are fairly easy to get off. These are pretty brittle, but if I just take a flat piece of metal or something, I can peel that off almost in one piece. But these pieces here are much more difficult to get off, especially the further down you go. This purple one here, I've got to pretty much sand off. Same with the lower level, this brown. I've tried scraping it off, and it's almost impossible. So I'm gonna have to go around this whole RV, all of these ugly lines, including the ones up there, and get these things off, because I want to paint this thing and I don't want to see the lines underneath. And then there's the door. Earlier episode, if you remember, go back and watch it. I had to replace this door because it was in really bad shape. Long story, go back and watch my other video and you'll be able to see what happened to the door and why I had to replace the whole thing. But I wanted to match up with that. So whatever paint color we go with, the whole thing's gonna, we'll probably have my wife will design the paint scheme and everything, but it's a lot of work to do. It's an ugly RV, but it's got potential, and we're gonna work on it and make her look good. And you'll never know. This will be hopefully a miraculous renovation when we're done, and it's not going to look anything like she looks now. I hope not. If you're planning on removing the vinyl decals from your RV, these are the 3 tools that I used. There may be better ways to do it, and I'd love to hear your comments below. But these are the 3 main tools that I use, and let me explain each one to you. This is just a regular disc sander, nothing special about it. You don't want to use sandpaper that's too rough, otherwise you'll really damage the side of your RV. But this worked pretty good to get some of those dried, caked on pieces off. So it worked pretty good as a follow-up, but you don't want to sand the vinyl decals off. It'll take you forever. So don't do that. This is kind of the last step. And it's a good surface prep as well for your RV once you're done getting it. The heat gun also worked really well. As I will show you a little bit later, if you take this heat gun and slowly apply heat to the vinyl graphics, you can actually peel them a little bit off like a sunburn. My daughter Harper thought that was awesome and very, very satisfying. But this worked really well to get certain pieces off. It doesn't work for the lines, especially it doesn't work for the caked off pieces of vinyl that we had. This last piece was a game changer for me. I wasn't expecting this, but this is just a basic scraper. And you take this thing, there's two settings for it, like a rough scrape and a real fine detailed one. And I could take this scraper, and what you do is you kind of lay it on the decal and you just pull it back and it would scrape the vinyl right off of it. So detailed that I could actually do it over the paint on the parts that were actually part of the vehicle chassis and scrape it without removing any paint. So this worked really well too, especially on those dry caked off pieces of vinyl where I could just slide it and go right down the line. So these are the tools that I used. Again, there may be better ways, better options that are out there, but I didn't have to use any chemicals, nothing like that to get this stuff off. It was just a little bit of heat and a little bit of elbow grease. So let's go ahead and remove these vinyl decals from the RV. So basically I'm just using my cheapo disc sander from Harbor Freight. I've got a pretty high grit sandpaper on here. I think it's around 300. I don't remember exactly. And I've already done a little line here of the decal and really happy to see how easily it came off. You want to be careful because this is very thin. Look back at my older video about how I put the saw through the wall like I just talked about, and you'll see how thin it is. But you want to be very careful sanding this. You don't want to go through or sand off too much of it. But I'll show you real quickly. This sander does a pretty good job of taking it off, at least this really light stuff. Maybe not the really thick, but we'll see. So here we go. Let's see how it goes. With a little bit, couple minutes of work there, I was able to take care of a half foot of this decal. So I'm going to work my way down and go portion by portion and get rid of this ugliness. Gonna have to figure out what to do when I get up against these little lines here, and also what to do on the front of the vehicle that is not fiberglass but is actually metal. I don't want to start this thing rusty, but maybe I'll just use some Goo Gone or something. We'll see. So this is after a night of scrubbing. Probably can't tell the difference, but if you look back at the old one to today, you'll see there used to be a purple line and a brown line. And I took the sander and got rid of them, except for that little spot right there. This area is a little bit harder because this is metal and not fiberglass, but I've got a tip for that. And then I also went down and did these different types of decals, but I did them a different way. So I'm going to show you the several different ways that I tackled it, and then you can decide what's best for you and how you want to go about doing it. So to get those lines off, for me the best option was to use a sander, at least the ones that are really baked on. For these decals it's a little bit different. I decided to go with this guy. This is just a heat gun, cheap purchase from Harbor Freight, and I bought extra nozzles to deflect the heat. So this nozzle here simply deflects the hot air as it comes out and kind of directs it underneath or to this decal. You want to be very careful because you'll actually melt the decal, so you don't want to give it too much heat. But basically you turn it on just like a hair dryer, and then you take some kind of a painter's tool after getting this nice and hot, or warm at least, and then you just go in and scrape it up or push on it a little bit. One thing I've noticed, or that I found from doing these other ones, the white part right here is much more difficult to get off. The blue, if this is anything like what I did to this section up here, the blue will come right off once it gets warm. I'll be able to peel it off by my fingers once I just kind of warm up the section ahead. But it's this white part that is really difficult. Once you get the whites up, it usually can come off almost like you're peeling a nice sunburn. It's kind of very satisfying to do this, actually. But apply the heat, and you can slide it right off. So obviously you can see why I would rather do this than sand it. Much easier, much cleaner, you know, and you're getting the sticky part out also. It's all coming up together instead of just sanding. So this is one that I did last night, and you know, this whole surface needs to be polished down and painted. But it's coming together, and slowly these ugly decals are coming off. And once you get a good little portion here, try not to burn myself, you just kind of give it a little bit of heat ahead of time, and then you can see it just kind of comes right off. Just like peeling skin. Not too hard to do. So again, you can see here how these white ones, the white portions, are much harder to get off. The blues just come right off, but anything that's really light, for some reason, is just really difficult to get off. It does come off, just a little bit more work. Let's keep at it. We're about halfway done. In the back here, it's a little bit more difficult because this is metal and this is fiberglass. So to get this paint off of the metal, I use this tool. This is just a simple paint scraper. I got it from my local hardware store. There's a fine, like a fine setting, and then on the other side is a really like coarse setting. So I'm just using the fine setting side. And it's just a matter of simply scraping and the paint comes off. A little bit of elbow grease. But as you can see, I've done it on this side over here already, and it's smooth as anything. It's not taking the paint off. When I was using the sander, it was doing that, and that was causing some trouble. But with this thing, it just kind of scrapes it off and makes it a lot easier. Just have to go over it, you know, nice and easy, so that you don't dig into it and expose the metal underneath. Either way, we're going to paint. So if I do make a mistake and the scraper digs a little too deep, we're going to paint this thing. But I'd rather not have to do anything extra. So just taking off as little paint as possible, or little labels or decals as possible. And then once we scrape all of these off, then it's a matter of a new paint job. So after a day of scrubbing with my hand scraper, I was able to get these decals off. It's a lot harder to get it off of this because this is actually metal. This is the fiberglass, but both of them are pretty difficult. None of them are easy. Once I get these things off, I'm going to give it a good scrub down because it's been sitting outside. You know, as I've said before, we haven't really done anything to the outside of this RV, so it's really overdue for a good pressure washing, basically. But I've been able to go all the way down the side here and scrape these decals off. These ones are much easier to get with my heat gun and this guy. It's much easier to scrape these off in pieces. But these lines were a lot easier to just scrape off with this scraper here. It actually worked really easy, just going right down this line. A lot of elbow grease, but was able to get it done. This little thing here, the water heater door, again, whenever it's metal, it's really hard to get it off, but you know, we're making progress getting these things done. Today, I'm going to work on these decals. These are harder than, you can't really scrape these off because they're so big. It's just easier to use a heat gun and scrape away. So I'm going to go at it today and make some more progress. I wanted to stop real quick while I'm doing this. I know there's people who buy chemicals and all kinds of crazy tools to do this. But honestly, I'm using this heat gun and just this simple scraper. And what you do, it's really tough to film, so I apologize in advance. But you take this heat gun And like so, you just kind of lead with the heat. Just kind of go in front of it, not too much, because if you do it too much, you're going to burn or melt this stuff. You just want to go ahead, hit it with some of the heat, and then you stop. If you need to scrape up some edges, you can, but then you just kind of pull gently, and it comes right up. You have to go slow and delicate, in little pieces at a time, but the heat melts the glue enough that you can just peel this stuff off. Some places are better than others. This is on the slide, so it doesn't get the sun damage like some of these other places did, but so far this has been the easiest one. Again, it's not going to work as well with this, but you can usually get a big piece like this off in one batch. This white stuff is what's impossible. It does not peel off. It's brittle, and for whatever reason, the white color must do something different with the sun. But if I wanted to, I could get this whole green piece off in almost one big pull. It takes a long time, but you can do it with just some heat and a scraper. So I'm going to keep on going here and show you some more progress once I'm at this for a little while. So when I was trying to find out the best way to get labels and graphics off of my RV, there were all kinds of helps out there with different types of chemicals, different types of tools. But so far, the stripes are a different story, at least the brown stripes and the purple stripes on mine. But this color is super easy, and all it needs is a little bit of heat applied to it in the right way. So let's get the Itasca logo and the Winnebago logo off of this thing, and we're almost done getting these labels off. You just prime the area with the heat, get it nice and warm, use a scraper, just kind of pry up the corner there, and then at this point you just peel it off. Gotta be careful not to burn your fingers, but you don't need anything. Just gotta go slowly and lead the way with the heat. Just kind of tap it ahead of you. If you get it too hard, it's going to melt the graphic, but you just kind of apply the heat. Boom. Pull it off. So let's get the rest of these letters off. Alright, so there you go. Not bad for, I don't know, how old are these graphics, like 23 years? But they came off pretty good with just some heat. So, and I've been looking forward to taking this one off for a while. No offense, 49ers fans, but I'm a Ravens fan, so I got to go with my team. So, see you later, 49ers. So I've gone around the whole RV here. I've been sanding like crazy and just getting rid of these ugly lines. I've used some Bondo to fill in some of the imperfections, some of the screw holes that I took out. I'm gonna work on those. A little body work, nothing crazy. So what I'm trying to do here is take that ugly residue of the stickers and buff it out so that while it's still somewhat noticeable, over here, for example, is a part that I've already sanded. You can still see it because, I mean, over the years, I mean, this is a 20-plus-year-old RV. It's stained. The sun, you know, has burned it into it. But now, when you touch it, obviously you can't touch it, but it feels pretty smooth. So the hope is that when we do decide to paint this thing, that you won't notice it. But I'm going to give this thing a good sanding and then get the fiberglass powder off of it and then give it a really good washing. It really needs one, as my neighbors are painfully aware. Sorry for the noise here, but just wanted to give a little progress on this the decal removal. This is definitely the ugly side of the RV. Both sides are ugly, but this is the uglier side. But this is just to show. I've been sanding with 150 grit sandpaper over the area where I've removed the decals. You can kind of see the difference, how dirty it was. Just smoothing it down because it's hard to see probably, but yeah, you can kind of see it there. Underneath where the decal was, I don't know if it's the stickiness or what, but the the fiberglass just needs some buffing. So I'm going over it with some light sandpaper, not too hard, and then I'll probably go over it with an even higher grit sandpaper as I go down, just to smooth it so that when we eventually paint over this thing, it's these old decals won't be noticeable. But obviously still a lot of work to do on this outside. Just wanted to give a quick update in progress here. So you can really see the difference between the unsanded and the sanded portion. I don't know if you can tell on this or not, but this has just been freshly gone over with some 150 grit, and this was not really sanded at all. So there's quite a difference there, and everybody knows a paint job is only as good as how good you prep it. So I'm making sure I get this whole area. This was all covered by decals, and for whatever reason it has this texture, whereas above it, even though it's dirty, it's smooth once it's cleaned off. So just hitting these and making sure it's nice and smooth. I've been able to get all of the ugly vinyl pieces off of this RV, and now I am in the cleaning stage. I'm giving it a really good bath. I've already started back here. Actually, I started up on the roof. Let me show you that real quick. Before you clean the outside, the exterior of your RV, I highly recommend cleaning the roof first, because my roof here in Florida, it gets dirty after a year, really dirty. And it really doesn't take that much effort if you keep up with it. So I went ahead and gave the roof a scrub down. Check out our earlier video on how to properly clean a roof, and you can see what ours used to look like. But I went ahead and already did the upper level so that now I can get to the walls and not get them dirty again. 30-second outdoor cleaner is what I have been using for the roof and for the sides. I've already done this back area here. But this is what the back looks like after a little bit of elbow grease. So you can see this is a lot cleaner than it used to be. And if we just pan around here to this side, this is what I've got to work on. So you can kind of see where I've left off right now. And I'm gonna work my way down this hideous, ugly surface. Up top's really bad. The mold has really grown, but I'm getting rid of it. Again, this outside looks horrible, but it's been neglected while I've been doing the inside. So it's high time that I get to the outside. So I'm gonna do some scrubbing, and then I will come back and provide an update. Nobody wants to watch somebody scrubbing an RV, so don't think you need that kind of advice. But if you want to check out and see what it looks like after I'm done, well, hold on 3 seconds. 3, 2. Forgive the generator noise, but as you can see, I've finished scrubbing this thing down. And really liking the look of it now. It actually looks respectable again. We went all the way around. I scrubbed this thing like crazy. And some more work to do. I've got to replace this guy. Gonna eventually get this thing painted, but for now, this is much better than it was. Some of this stuff that you can see, if you run your hand over it, you can't feel anything. So it's just over the years, the sun has kind of burned the name into it. But the hope is, after all the sanding and everything, you can't feel that. So after a good coat of paint, then this thing is going to be in a much better shape to look a little bit nicer. So I just wanted to give a quick update on some of these areas that I did some Bondo work too. Let me do a little close-up and I'll show you a little bit more. So down below there was a pretty ugly crack, and was able to Bondo it down and sand it really well. It's not too hard to work with it. You just have to keep sanding it until it's nice and smooth. It's a little wet now, it's been raining outside, but it's not perfect. If you take it to a body shop, they will do a much better job than I would ever be able to do. But this is good enough as far as I'm concerned. So I'm pretty happy with that. And again, you know, did the Bondo on all these screw holes that were on here when I took off the awning. I'm going to replace that with something new, but I'm okay with this. You know, if somebody was to come up here with a microscope and really check these areas out, you might notice it one day, but I'm not that worried about it. And again, if you look back at one of our older episodes, fixing a hole, you'll see, number one, what was the cause of this leak or this hole in the wall. It was me, by the way. You'll see how I patched this and how I fixed it. So yeah, check that out, and that'll give you a really good idea of how to fix a hole in an RV. So as you can see behind me, there's still a lot of work to be done on this RV, but pretty happy with how she looks. You know, we got all this ugly, disgusting vinyl off of it, so it really does look nice. You still have to use your imagination a little bit, but we're hoping to take it out, get it professionally painted, professionally finished so that it looks really nice. And to be honest with you, isn't quite an eyesore and an embarrassment as we go down the road. But I think overall she cleaned up well. If you're thinking about doing this, I think you could estimate, you know, the financial budget isn't much. It's just a couple scrapers and some sandpaper and a bunch of elbow grease. But it took me, I would estimate, probably 3 weekends of doing this. And it was hot and it was dusty and it wasn't a whole lot of fun. So, you know, if you want to pay somebody to do this, it might be a wise investment. But if you want to do it on the cheap, you can do this kind of thing yourself. Just be careful so you don't damage the exterior of your RV. Painting, I do not recommend painting yourself. This, from what I understand, painting an RV, you can do it, but it's not necessarily going to look good or professional. There's special rooms where they need to do it to dry it off, to keep dust off of it, to get that nice finish that we see. So we're going to take this thing to get it professionally painted eventually, but for now we're not going to worry about it. It's a lot less of an eyesore than it used to be, so we're happy with that for now. But if you're doing this kind of work, we've got lots of videos that you can go back and check out our channel. Everything from the kitchen to upcoming, we've got a video even just on tires. It's a lot harder than I thought to get tires for your RV. So we've got a video upcoming on that. We've got kitchen work, bathroom work, all kinds of renovations from top to bottom on this thing. We've gutted it and we've done a ton of work. So check out our channel, watch our videos, like, subscribe, leave some comments below. We'd love to hear from you guys. So until the next time, I'm going to go ahead and sign out. Thanks for watching 10,000 Roads, and we'll see you next time.